I am Geoffrey of Iladwen in Troy Total War. I should perhaps change my name to Jeffreys or Geoffrey Cleese or something like that, but in any case, I will be going over an Agamemnon campaign that I have practically finished. So I'm gonna go back and just go back into the campaign. I'm in game turn 190, but the campaign finished at around 180 practically. And I'll show you the victory conditions so you will believe me. So I'm not going to do the entire campaign. I'm not going to go over the entire campaign, but I'm going to go over and explain how it went. So, so we have this condition ticked in green. We have destroy Hector of Troy, Paris of Troy, and Troy, the three factions. I'm holding the following settlement Troy at the bottom. And then maintain 60% of the following influence in the specified provinces, Achaean influence. All those provinces are controlled by me or my allies. The ones I control directly, all of them have at least 60% influence. But there are two controlled by my allies, so I have to wait. It's just a matter of waiting. And the only other condition that remains is this one at the top, saying complete all the steps of your hero's epic mission change. Current progress 2 out of 13. I don't know what this is all about. I cannot wait for Creative Assembly to give me missions or something. I'll basically finish the campaign. And I'm already 190 game turns, so how long would one wait? Or should one wait? So I'm going to go then back out and I will show you the campaign from the start and just pick up a few various different, I have some saves, so let's go to the first save. And then I'll go over some of the aspects of the campaign. I'll give you my opinions, I'll give you some tips and suggestions. I'll tell you how it went. I don't know if it is typical or not. It's my first full Agamemnon campaign. And some ideas, suggestions, some of my views about the battle AI, the campaign AI, what to watch out for, and so on. So this is the area where the Agamemnon sort of starts. His capital is in Mycenae. Now, one thing that I thought would be nice to have is, when I click on Mycenae, I should be not just being given the browser on itself. I should be going into Mycenae and be able to look, and maybe if you build some walls or something, you should be able to maybe check out what the walls would look like. If you build a guardhouse, see what it looks like. Also if you send a spy to a foreign settlement, see what it looks like. So if it has 2 gates or 3 gates, you need 2 or 3 siege ramps and things like that. So it would be useful to have that, but also I think this game is a lot like time travel, and I think the value of some of these modes, especially the 2 saga titles, not modes, but games, the 2 saga titles especially happen in very obscure periods of history, very sort of dark ages of history. And so to be, to have the settlements already there, they've already been, made by Creative Assembly. And I think it's a bit of a waste not to be able to go into the settlement, just have a look around as a virtual tourist, something like that. They're there, I cannot go into Mycenae, being the king of Mycenae, virtually. I cannot go into Mycenae and have a look at my kingdom, kind of, at my palace, or from the outside, or whatever. Be able to just have a look. I think it would be another thing. But anyway, let's go back and describe the campaign and what goes on. I've built Temple of Aphrodite. No, I haven't built it yet. I'm building this thing here that gives better units. But at some point I'm going to build a Temple of Aphrodite. So the most important gods in my view, if we go up to the gods here, are Hera, because it gives you attrition to casualties suffered by enemy armies, plus if you level 2, you have 50% plus 50 growth in provinces with 60% own influence. Aphrodite is also very important. And then the third most important one is Athena, because Athena provides some boost to your spearmen and the Achaeans. At least Agamemnon is mostly spearmen, also Menelaus mostly spearmen, so it's good to have Athena. Once you decide to cross the sea, You will need where is it, Poseidon to give you various buffs with crossing the sea to get to Troy or to Asia, and Zeus is important for praying to improve deal evaluation for diplomatic agreements. But you don't need to boost Zeus; you just need to pray to Zeus. Whereas the other ones can be useful, and also Poseidon. Yeah, okay, maybe Poseidon is also important to pray, but the other three are important to boost and increase the level. They're at least celebrated, or at least respected, if not celebrated. Okay, so that's my view on the gods, which are important. The three female goddesses that I mentioned are the most important in my view. And what happened in this time in history was, well, where are we now? We're in late Bronze Age, just before the Bronze Age collapsed. As I said already, the Bronze Age collapsed shortly after the conquest of Troy. Somewhat enigmatically, but as you play this campaign, you get an impression of what is going on. The archaeological record shows various places were deserted, some were captured and destroyed by conquerors, some suffered earthquakes, some had suffered famine, some there were rebellions. As you go through the campaign, you see all those things happening individually to individual settlements, and it feels like, you can go back in history and see, maybe this is what was happening. Maybe it was like a war which is of such global effect that caused famine, caused depopulation in some places. Some places were deserted because of enemy attacks or pirates. Some places were burned by enemy attack, but not all of them. It wasn't some sort of systematic thing that some enemy went city by city and destroyed everything. But things are happening at random because no side was really winning. And the war is said by Homer to have lasted 10 years. It is said that Achilles had already, by the time he got to Troy, had already sacked 29 cities. He was sometimes, I think, somewhere referred to as the sacker of cities, because he had sacked already 29 cities. And so you get an impression this was like large-scale war, and also some other elements I won't go into. But this is the situation we found ourselves in, and there had already been a couple of wars before this time. So there was a minor war between the king of Pylos, it was a kingdom down here in Messenia, here's Pylos, against the Eleans, who are up here. There had been some war when the king of Pylos was a young prince. The Eleans stole some cattle or sheep or something. He went over to avenge them. Then there was another war that happened in the area of Thebes around here. Thebes had suffered a succession crisis, so two princes were sort of fighting over succession. One of them enlisted the support of the Argives, the sort of people who lived around this area, including Argos, which is somewhere here. I'm not really sure. Is it shown? Argos is here next to Mycenae. And the Argives were the people who lived in this sort of area. So enlisted their support, and 7 heroes of the Argives came to help him claim the throne of Thebes for himself. And there was a very large war known as the War of the 7 against Thebes. And this is, it's not part of Homeric poetry, but it's part of the heroic epic cycles that the ancient Greeks very often kind of fantasize or whatever, talked about and dramatized and made plays about them and so on. They made plays about the Trojan War, they made dramatic sort of drama plays, tragedies about the lives of Agamemnon, about his family, about various heroes of this time, about Iphigenia, and also about the 7 against Thebes and about other events that had happened in these obscure times before the Bronze Age collapse that were referred to as the Golden Age. Okay, so there were those wars, and these wars actually have been put into the context of this game. So we start with wars around Thebes and with wars around the Eleans here, between the Eleans and Pylos. And Agamemnon will be probably dragged into those wars. Somehow he has to kind of find some settlement and pacify all the Danaans or the Achaeans. Achaeans were the sort of people who lived mainly in the Peloponnese, mainly. And the other peoples who lived elsewhere in Greece and thereabouts, here in the southernmost part of Greece, or central part of Greece were Danaans. So that means there were not Achaeans, but there were Dorians or Ionians, other kind of tribal groups, wherever, whatever, mixed with indigenous peoples, Pelasgians and whatnot, former Minoans and Aegeans and whatever. And so there is a certain percentage of Achaeans per settlement, but some settlements are only 40%, some are 12% or whatever. And there were other ethnicities and so on scattered around here. The Dorians were up in the north, near Macedonia, but slightly south of Macedonia. Macedonia was not very well characterized by Homer, and don't know very much about Macedonia from this period. But Homer refers to, for example, the Paeonians who lived just north of Macedonia. It refers to various Thracian kings who lived east of Macedonia. And refers to an area called Hellas, the land of Hellas, of fair women, and so on. But it was not all of Greece. It was only an area around here, in the sort of interior of Greece, near between Epirus and so on. It's a sort of area where the Cassiopeae or something, are being located, and the Epirotans. So it's that sort of area. In ancient times, the times of Homer, was called Hellas. Not all of Greece was called Hellas, just that land. And later it gave its name to the whole of Greece, for some reason, obscure. So that's the time, this is sort of the situation we found ourselves in with the other wars and the other tribes. And another thing that happened at this period that probably sparked the Trojan War was that the Hittite Empire collapsed. The Hittites had a very large empire in what is today Turkey, and they controlled a lot of these coastal areas on the coast of modern Turkey. Not all of them, but they seem to have controlled Troy and some of the more northern regions. And then the Achaeans had settled in some of the southern regions, but there was still another people called the Lycians or Lycians that lived down south, and they were in constant fight with the Achaeans who were kind of settling on their lands. Now the Lycians probably, or Lycians, were at some point vassals of the Hittites, and probably the Trojans were also, I think it's some evidence that were vassals of the Hittites. But around this time, for a mysterious reason, the Hittites collapsed just before the Trojan War. And I think this created a kind of power vacuum. And so the Achaeans, or at least Agamemnon, must have thought that maybe there's an opportunity here to get the upper hand over Troy, because their great ally has died out, or something, or they're left hanging, high and dry. And so that might have been partly of what sparked the Trojan War. Might have been other things that we don't know about. This conflict with the Thebans and the Theban War, that maybe the Trojans got involved, or maybe they tried to exploit the fact that the Achaeans were in a civil war state to somehow expand their influence or something. It's hard to know what was going on. The archaeology is a bit, it's not very clear. And there are few written records from this period, mostly merchants' accounts, nothing really useful. So it's very difficult to piece out the history of what exactly sparked this war, and that brought part of the reason that the Bronze Age was brought to a close. So let's go now to another. There's not much else to see about this period other than the fact that I'm building up my scene. I don't control very much. Now, at some point, Corinth, we went into conflict with Corinth, a nearby province here, this Corinthians. The Corinthians, I can't remember if they took part in the Trojan War. They had their own kings, and Bellerophon and the horse Pegasus were of Corinthian origin. Bellerophon, the man who was riding the Pegasus, the flying horse, was a prince of Corinth, and he went at some point to live in Lycia here. I don't really know why. If it was some sort of, if he became a prince or something. But I don't really know or remember very well the legend of how did he end up there, and whether that means anything. And when did Bellerophon live? I think Bellerophon lived probably before the time of the Trojan War. Of course, he was a mythical king, like some of the other ones possibly. But what exactly was the situation here is not so clear. But I think at the time of the Trojan War, Corinth was not one of the big players, that's for sure. Whether it allied or was a vassal of Agamemnon is not so clear. But in any case, in the game is been in some sort of conflict. Eventually, will come into conflict with Agamemnon. And so let's load a following campaign. I'll show you what is going on. Let's go following game turn or whatever. Let's just pick one at random. Let's go for 22. Let's see what's happening. The harpies. So here we have now captured Corinth. That was the next step in the campaign. We've managed somewhat to kind of control some of these areas, but I think we're still in conflict with the Eleans, which are down here, this area. And they've caused, they and their allies have caused some issues around this area, so I had to expand eventually towards Aegean. And there are various other troublemakers around this area, where Amphissa and Tolophon are. Over here, Ithaca is controlled by Odysseus, who I believe at this point he was an ally of mine. Let's see, Knossos, Arcadians, where are we? Ithaca is an ally. So Odysseus at this point was an ally of mine. And they will be expanding into this area. They're already taking this settlement down here, Calydon. And then there's some other neutrals here. These ones, the Curetes, who I think took part in the Trojan War, if I'm not mistaken. And other important characters that took part was, of course, Nestor, the king of Pylos. He is unfortunately not a faction that we can play. Another important character was Ajax, the king of Salamis, a very important character. Diomedes, the king of Argos, took part in the Trojan War. Here is Ajax, okay? And then there were various other kings. There was Ajax, the so-called Ajax the Lesser, because she was also called Ajax as another king, as the king of Narikos or Norikos. Up here, of course, there was Achilles in this area of Thea and Alos and Alope, but he was also said to have ruled over Hellas, and his army was consisting of Achaeans and Hellenes. It was unique among the combatants that took part in the expedition against Troy. So a lot of these regions belong to historical, so to speak, characters from Homeric poetry. And somewhere in this area of Euboea, for example, and elsewhere, there was a king or two kings of Crete, and various other kings, the king of Rhodes, and so on. But some areas are conspicuous and haven't sent particularly small armies. One was Corinth, the other one was Athens. Athens sent an army with the king, but made no major contribution to the fighting, which is kind of suspect, because the version that we have of the Iliad was eventually compiled in Athens, so maybe they wanted to have their own king, taking part in the expedition, so they added it in without him actually contributing anything much to the actual expedition. Here is Troy up here. Oh, it's Colonnade. Troy is further up, somewhere here. Yeah, there. So, we're starting to see now over here. Oh, here is also Skyros, where King Lycomedes was, another character from the Trojan War. So there seemed to be some conflict between Salamis. Somehow they started a war with Thebes as part of this war of the Seven against Thebes. There's a chance you may start a war against Athens, but I tried to have good diplomatic connections with Athens, but I think eventually something went wrong and Salamis attacked Athens anyway. Here Salamis, Ajax is attacking Thebes. And we're still before the Trojan War, you know, the period before the Trojan War. So, yeah, there's not very much else. So they'll be giving you the historical context, but I'd like to concentrate a little bit more on the campaign itself now. So here I build a temple to Aphrodite, which I think is the first most important temple to build. But I don't control any other major settlements, so I don't have any other temples at that point. So let's load another campaign further down. Another save. So let's go to some other save. Load. Go to game turn 50. Oh, 60 will do. And you see by around game turn 50 or 60 we're already in big trouble. You'll see in a minute. So we're on game turn 60 and the trouble has started. If I'm not mistaken, is this a good game turn? I don't know. I'm doing this just random. So I'm more or less on the way of conquering, pacifying most of Greece. And the Amazons have turned up in Greece, which did at some point in history, according to legend, the mythical cycle, whatever, the heroic cycle that turned up in Greece, particularly the queen Hippolyta turned up near Athens, and here she is made to control Carystus. She conquered Carystus, and Penthesilea, which was a queen that fought in the Trojan War, well, it's not said by Homer to have ever reached Greece, but here this is outside Thebes. She's a very peculiar faction, and it's very useful to have as an ally. So here is Hippolyta in Asia. This is making journey, conquering various areas on her way to near Athens, in the direction of Athens. And here are my other factions that are allies. So here's where Dionysius is one of the allied factions. And here down here are the Cretans. But you can see some troublesome signs on the horizon. First of all, we have the Carians, this Lelegia Minoa. They're already kind of appearing, so having incursions in the direction of Greece. And what is that? Carians, there it is. So the Carians and the Legia Minoa. And then up here, we are somehow war with Lycia or Lycia. And they're expanding in the direction of the Amazons, and they're controlling a lot of these areas. Now, there were some areas of Achaean cities, such, for example, Miletus, and the Carians have already taken it over. And the Lycians are expanding in their direction. The Amazons are in their way. So it seems to be, they kicked the Achaeans out of Asia, and they're already expanding the direction of Greece towards Athens and so on. So our faction here in blue is still a small faction. Let's have a look. Attitude. So it's these yellow areas, so control some of these areas in the Peloponnese, around Mycenae, and then because of this war that Ajax dragged me into, I ended up going across the sea, and now I'm controlling some areas around Thebes, so north of Thebes and so on. And I have a lot of allies. All these green factions are allies. I have allied with Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, and at some point also allied with Penthesilea. And I've also ordered my allies to go into Rhodes and try and control Rhodes, because maybe if we go back to game turn 60 or game turn 40, you might find Let's see, let's go to game turn 40. Because I have a feeling at some point before that, let's see, I could be wrong, let's see, that already the Carians and Lilogis and Lycia were making an incursion. It didn't happen at game turn 60, it had already happened earlier. Let's have a look. No, this is controlled by Crete, Okay, the Amazons. Crete. This is unmapped territory. We don't know what's going on with Lycia and so on. So let's forget that. Let's go to something like game turn 65. Maybe at this point I'll show you a battle, and then I'll leave this campaign and continue the next game turn. 60, we're at 60, wasn't it? Okay, 66. And I'll show you one of the first battles, which was kind of interesting. The first interesting battle as opposed to one of the first battles. The first interesting battle was something to learn from it. So we're around game turn 65 or 66. And you see already some trouble on the horizon. So we have Hector of Troy with his armies turning up, which might have been a real history. We just don't know all the history about this period. But he's turning up around these areas, you know, Euboea, around Eretria, and the Abantes were one of the states that fought Troy at some point. And then here's again Ajax and the Amazons. And here are the various troublesome peoples, the Carians and so on. They're definitely expanding. You know, the Legia and so on. They're expanding towards Greece, along with the Lycians. And Lycian, Sarpedon, is now a so-called antagonist. We have to fight him. He's much stronger than we are. You see, the red bar is much bigger than the yellow bar. So he's our antagonist. Is much stronger than we are. We have somehow, you know, he's not going to leave us alone. He's not going to accept peace or give us a peace offer or whatever, treaties or anything. He's absolutely, you know, our enemy or whatever. I mean, he's determined to fight us and destroy us. So here's our antagonist. There's nothing we can do about it. We have to fight him. And this, at this point, changed my plans, because I don't just have the Trojans to fight, and I don't just have to protect places here like Skyros and Euboea and this campaign towards Troy. Now I actually have to fight Sarpedon before I turn my attention to Troy. Is this historical? I don't know. I mean, there were wars with the Lycians at this time, but it's not, it's a possibility, whatever. And in addition to have to deal with the Carians, with the Lelagis, with the Lycians, now I have to deal with Troy and Hector, who are invading our lands. And in addition, there are minor wars. Here's Paris of Troy as well. They've also gotten to our lands. This is a settlement that I control, Opus, and already Paris of Troy is here, and one of his other heroes or generals. And then there are various other states up here that are against us. So Thessaly, Pharsalos and some other states up here are at war with us. And so this early part of the campaign was quite hard. And I'll show you all the battles that took around this time. Now, I was trying to hold all these sides and all these fronts against so many enemies. And at some point I had a navy, had some small army around here or something, trying to hold back the Carians. And they were attacked by an unknown faction called Melibia or Meliboea or Melibia or something like that. That were somewhere up here. I had never encountered them before, but they attacked me. Thessalians. They were north of Thessaly. It was a faction around here. Out of the blue, they turned up and attacked me without, I had enough trouble in my hands. My hands were full. I mean, I had at this time, I don't know how many armies. Let's have a look. I have Amphimachus and Agamemnon, just two, oh no, or Orsilochus, Amphimachus and Agamemnon. I have 20 units with Agamemnon, but 5 units with Orsilochus, and so with Amphimachus, and 6 units with Orsilochus. So not a huge army, and I have to deal with Hector with 3 or 4 stacks here, with Paris with his 2 stacks, with the Salians, you know, going to war. Yes, again Hector, and then they also have the Carians, the Letygians, the Lycians, where the Lycians alone are stronger than I am. At this point, the campaign was really a handful. I'm playing on hard difficulty. Okay, so let's load now the battle, and then I'll leave it to that. So exit to main menu. And the battle happened at around by this time, around game turn 65 or 66. So let's load the battle. It's going to be first battle. Woe Siege, this one. And I'm just going to show you the replay. So this hero Plautius, with a substantially sized army of not particularly good quality though, decided to attack Melibea, and he has 2 cavalry units. There wasn't much cavalry at this time, but he has 2 cavalry units. And so here's my garrison of this place. Forget where it was, but it was, I think, one of the islands, or possibly it was in Thebes, near Thebes, but I think it was one of the islands. And see how the units. I have some really simple units of club infantry and some slingers, but I do have a couple of heavy units. And so, although I'm severely outnumbered, I have these rather heavy units here. I have some bronze armor, so it's pretty good. Armed with clubs, bronze clubs, not just any clubs. And let's see, I have also another unit, I think, of them here. Shielded clubmen, that's right. And then some bronze-clad spearmen here. Light swordsmen, not spearmen. And before our enemies arrive, I want to show you some of these units. It would be interesting to see. Take a little bit of time to get there, sorry. So they also have some bronze armor, and they have some bronze helmets. And the rest of the units are, you know, just they've come in the clothes they were sleeping in, whatever. And the slingers have some daggers and so on. Not much in the way of armor. But that's how I imagine soldiers at this time. Some of them have shields, but not, you know, some of these clubmen, the basic clubmen here have shields. These ones. Club warriors.
The foe has sighted.
In any case, so the battle has started. And here's some of the cavalry. These centaurs, they're coming this side. And they're going to attack all sides. Let's just speed it up just a little bit. And so I have, you know, I'll be overtaxed because I only have like 3 melee units, and there are 3 choke points, and all 3 choke points are being attacked. So I cannot do any clever tactics or anything because my 3 melee units, they're all going to be occupied. It looks like a very big attack is going here on the left, so I'm sending my hero to help out on the left. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 club units, possibly 6, and their cavalry. The secondary attack takes place here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, another 6 units and their general. And then a minor, perhaps less important attack happens on this side with 3 club units and their cavalry. Oh, 4 club units. And this one unit has to hold back 4. This one unit has to hold back 6. And this other unit down here with my general will have to hold back another 6. So it was pretty hairy at this point, and I'm going to switch over to the perspective from the ground, because it's interesting also to see some of these units. So you see, these guys, they have no armor except their shields. These clubmen. And I'm going to show you this view so we can see all three choke points and what is going on. Well, practically all three. And so some of these javeliners are helping out over here. And then there's more fighting down here with this other unit fighting the 4 or 5 stacks of 4 or 5 units of clubmen. And then here is my general somewhere around here, where there's swordsmen fighting, you know, the 5 or 6 units of enemy clubmen plus their cavalry. One of our units has run out of ammunition, wherever they were. And over here things are not looking too good, I'm afraid. Okay, the javeliners have run out of ammunition. So they join the melee. It's pretty, it's pretty scary around here because they have their general, and both outnumbered. But the the hero, usually has a lot of hit points. So it's a real pain to have to fight the enemy hero. If it was just the enemy clubmen, would be okay. So let's have a look at what happens on the other fronts. It looks like on that side we have defeated the enemy. We've routed 3 of the units, except 1 is not routed yet. So I'm sending off these light unit to try and control them. I was hoping I could disengage the clubmen, the armored clubmen, but it looks like now the guys who were routed are coming back. Yeah, I thought for a moment that they were all going to get routed, but they were not. So okay, over here we're losing heart, this side. So this is a little bit tough. One of our units is going to be routed, and here is where they have their general. He has activated one of his abilities. You see there. So our armored clubmen here have been routed. This is very unfortunate. So we still have the javeliners here. The javelin men. Here's their enemy general in green with green coat, green cape. And now the javelin men have also been routed, so I had to withdraw the clubmen from this side over here. Fortunately, that side has been completely defeated, so now the slingers are taking care of the routed enemies, and I was able to disengage that club unit over here. But if you see from the bar above, yellow is very, very small, mostly red, so we're definitely losing this fight. But you'd be surprised at the final result. So here we managed somehow to rout a lot of these clubmen. Only the general and a couple units, I think 1 or 2 units or 3 units, are still fighting on. So over the other side, I had managed to defeat with my general those clubmen. So now everybody's coming this side. So all the fighting now is happening here. So our hero, the enemy hero, and all the units that are in good order. On this side, there's archers swiveling, whatever, stringing around to fire this side. Except that those slingers have gone chasing some enemy routed units. And they're going to be crucial for how the battle will develop. Now we're kind of managing to hold them back, but yellow is still very weak. We're still losing. A lot depends on the fight between the 2 generals. The enemy hero is almost full strength, has all his hit points. Our hero is half strength. only has half his hit points left. It looks like for the time being here we have controlled this area. We just have to kill the enemy hero and then we won. But the enemy hero has so many hit points, we cannot kill him. You know, everyone's gathered around him, and while we're not killing him, his units are being rallied and coming to help him. So already some of his units are arriving. All the units that have been routed have come back. Still not winning. It looked like for a moment we had a chance to win. Practically all enemy units except the general had been routed. But the enemy is coming back. The enemy hero is flying through the air. And now things are turning around for our enemy. Practically all our units have been defeated. Our hero has been routed. There's just one unit, this light swordsman, that is still fighting on. If that unit dies, no, also there's some clubmen here. That unit has been routed, but the clubmen are still fighting. And someone is rallying. I think the general, the hero, is rallying, but there are units coming from all other directions now. It's such a mess. And we do still have a unit here. There, these guys are chasing the enemy, the slingers.
Take care. You are losing ground.
We're losing ground, but you know, the fighting is still tight, kind of not giving up, but we're definitely losing. Yellow is very, very, very weak. Red is very, very strong. And the main battle is down here, but the principle here is do not give up, even though it looks so weak. You'll see the result. Unbelievable as it's going to look, but okay, so the fighting here is we you know, never really winning. We keep losing, but fortunately not all our units get routed at the same time. So now the general here almost has no health left. One of our units has been completely destroyed. The general has been killed. Our hero has been killed. And there are a couple of units down here that are very low health. And there are these archers now fighting the enemy general, having routed the enemy clubmen. And now it seems like we're swinging the battle around. Okay, we lost our hero, but again, only the enemy general has left fighting. Unfortunately, enemy units keep coming to his aid. Here's some enemy centaurs. This cavalry unit has come over. Look at the death over here. It's like the ground is strewn with dead. And I'm bringing all the units that I can because I want to kill the enemy hero. He's activated another ability. He's strengthened the morale of his horsemen and also his own morale. And yellow is still very weak. We managed to, I think at this point, rout the enemy general, you see. And now yellow has become a little bit better, but we're still losing. Because enemy units have rallied. You see a couple, now where are they? Some units have rallied here, and they're coming back. So we're still outnumbered. We're still outnumbered. But we're not giving up. So this archer unit is down to half strength. This light swordsmen only have like a handful of men left. The enemy general has come back to life, but he's exhausted. And then there is that archer unit, if you remember, that had gone out here, and they're trying to stop, you know, trying to kill any enemy units that are being routed, so they don't come back into the fighting. But they cannot do it all on their own. And here the enemy general has managed to rout another one of our units, and the reinforcements are arriving. So those archers that were half strength have been destroyed, and the other units that were fighting here have all been killed. The only unit that's still in fighting good order, the only one that has not been routed among our units, if I'm not mistaken, is that slinger unit up here. We've routed them, it says. And at this point I realize this is my only unit still in good order, and so I'm taking him back, because now the enemy is capturing our our
The foe is capturing your victory point.
victory point, our base, or whatever. They are capturing our settlement, you know, whatever it was there, some altar or something, the center of the town, main plaza. And this unit, you see how slow they go? They're completely exhausted from running after the enemy routed units. So now I'm walking them so they get some rest. And there were slingers, but they probably fired their slings and there's nothing left. So they're fighting now with these daggers. They've drawn out their daggers that were chasing the enemy routed units. And yeah, some of them actually have helmets. That's interesting. Okay, they're not completely unarmored. Some have helmets, have some small shields. And I'm gonna speed it up just for a second because it's just waiting now. And let's have a look what's happening.
Victory point.
Okay, so the enemy general has captured our base or plaza here. So everything depends now on the archers getting back on time, otherwise we'll lose. So the archers have to somehow fight off the enemy general, these archers, these slingers. And the enemy already has his clubmen here. So decided to attack the clubmen. Okay, let's go back to normal speed. And bizarrely enough, managed to rout the clubmen because they had very weak morale at this point. And now just have the enemy general left. Once again, just the enemy general. But it's possible that enemy units will rally themselves and will come to help him. So can I kill?
Is about to fall.
Stronghold is about to fall. Now, can we rout the enemy general? That is the question. And we routed the enemy general, but that's not the end of the fight. We routed him. He's not dead, but he has very little health left. But they're enemy units still, and it's now a 50-50 chance of winning or losing. But this battle was it came down to the wire. It was like totally hair-raising until the very end. Now we're chasing the enemy hero, and if we kill him, that would be a big blow, I think, for the enemy. There he is. If we can kill him, he's trying to stab him from behind. If you can kill him, we may have a chance of winning. Can we kill him? It's yellow. Okay, all the enemy units finally routed, and that's it. So that was a victory. This is what I want to show you. Never give up, even if the odds are totally against you. However, this will only work. You only have a real chance if the odds are really so much against you. If the enemy hero is not a very good hero, if it doesn't have much battle experience, doesn't have a lot of traits and abilities and so on. If it is a good hero, like if it was Paris of Troy or something like that, there'd be no chance in odds of this kind. No chance of winning. But if it's a weak enemy commander, which is not very good, then you have a chance to win. So let's just speed it up. So we won against all odds with our last unit, a unit of slingers at that. Okay, I mean, just quit replay. Yeah, but So we don't get the actual results, we don't really see, but I mean, you can see here, no, this wasn't a defeat, it was a victory. Why did I say defeat? Anyway, so this was actually a victory, we won this battle. Okay, so that was the episode for today. I'll do a few more episodes. I'll show you some interesting battles with Agamemnon against Hector, against Paris of Troy, and so on, the capture of Troy at the very end. So I'll do these episodes, maybe 4 or 5 episodes in the next couple of weeks. Thank you for watching.